Good morning, everyone. So I will talk about electrophysiological connectivity in MEG and stereotactic EEG data. And I will sort of describe two different types of connectivity. That is, one is within frequencies, and the second one is across the frequencies. So in electrophysiology, when we talk about functional connectivity, we usually refer to connectivity among neuronal oscillations. And oscillations are rhythmic excitability fluctuations which facilitate the spiking of neurons in the high excitability phase and suppress it in the low excitability phase. And frequently, when we discuss functional connectivity and oscillations in the MEG and EEG and also intracranial EEG data, we talk about oscillations that are in the frequency range of 1 to 120 or 150 or faster range. But there are also fluctuations in this data that are in the same frequency range and in the Bolt signal in the 0.01 to 0.1 range. And we have shown in collaboration with Vesa Kiviniemi that these kind of very slow fluctuations in the EEG actually co-localize with fMRI Bolt signal fluctuations in the same subsystem, suggesting that also in EEG we can reflect similar state fluctuations in neuronal activity to that of fMRI. But mostly we are interested in the faster oscillations. And in these, the synchronization of neuronal oscillations or phase coupling is thought to regulate neural communication and control the processing across brain regions. And one of the reasons for this is that synchronized neuronal activity between two populations has a greater impact on a downstream postsynaptic neuron than does the sort of asynchronous input. Of course, in humans, we cannot record the neuronal spiking per se. Well, if we are lucky and we don't have a collaborator from such a lab that can record those from epileptic patients, but most of the time we cannot record this. So what we do is that we can only estimate the phase coupling between the neuronal oscillations, and we then guesstimate that this would be reflecting synchronization. Similarly to those findings of in vivo animal studies, and this kind of synchronization has a temporal precision of from some tens of milliseconds to approximately to 1 second, depending on the frequency range which we are investigating. In addition to phase coupling between oscillations, we can also estimate the amplitude coupling of oscillations by estimating how the oscillation amplitude envelopes are correlated. But the temporal precision of this kind of correlation is slightly lower because the amplitudes develop in over some hundreds of seconds, at least over 2 seconds. So these two forms of oscillatory connectivity has been frequently investigated in the neuronal activity. So we can measure connectivity both from MEG and SEG data. If we do it from MEG and EEG data, we first need to do a source reconstruction of these activities and parcellate it into anatomical and functional parcellations. And then we can compute the connectomes between the parcels and across the frequencies. And SEG data we can also parcellate to the same parcellations that we use for MEG and EEG data. And finally, we can do the group statistics and graph analysis for this parcellated connectomics data. And when we have used this kind of approach and computed the phase and amplitude correlations, we can see that they are roughly similar. So when you just look at it, it looks pretty similar. We have correlations across frequencies from 4 to 120 hertz. There is a little bump both in MEG and SEG data. But overall, these correlations are rather flat. But if we actually compare the similarity, edge similarity, or subgraph similarity of this amplitude and phase coupling connectomes, we actually see that they are only correlated with each other in the alpha and beta band. And this is not surprising, taking that these are basically the most prominent bands in the human resting state. And we can see these correlations in the distributed brain regions, but they are prominent in the prefrontal cortex and the parietal cortex. So we have these phase-phase and amplitude-amplitude correlations. They are correlated partially, but they are also partially reflecting differential neuronal processing and neuronal coupling among brain regions. So although by using this kind of coupling measures we can sort of estimate the connectivity in fast temporal precision, we are usually interested of the time or time-evolved synchronization in relation to tasks, and where we are interested to see whether the synchronization changes as a function of task performance or stimulus perception. And one of the tasks that we have used to compute such synchronization is somatosensory detection task, where the subjects are detecting somatosensory or tactile stimuli. And when we sort of estimate synchronization from this data, we can see that there is a prominent synchronization in delta and in gamma bands concurrently for the stimuli that are perceived, but not for those that are not perceived. And it looks like the synchronization would be sustained throughout the time. Here is the stimulus onset. But if we actually estimate changes in connectivity patterns within the functional subsystems, in this case in the EO parcellation, we can see that how the synchronization actually fluctuates from attentional system to the more sensory system. So we have dynamic synchronization that can couple brain regions sort of either in a time-dependent manner and sort of connect the different brain regions into this functional significant networks. So this is a very, this is a sort of just an idea of how oscillations could be related to cognition, and don't take it too seriously. So the basic idea is that we have many frequencies that have many different functional roles in the processing. Fast oscillations are usually related to sensory processing, and the slowest ones are related to brain state fluctuations, and then we have many networks in between that are related to attention, executive, and decision functions. And the question that has interested me for a long time is that how do we integrate then these frequencies that they must be integrated for us to be sort of having a coherent cognition. And there's two possible methods. One is phase amplitude coupling, and the second one is phase synchrony between oscillations. And these both have been investigated by several studies, PAC more than the CFS. And we have sort of shown also that the infraslow fluctuations that I now referred to earlier, they actually couple all of the faster oscillations in a nested manner, and this can be one way how the infraslow fluctuation in the brain can control then the sort of the processing in the faster time scales. The central interest of my lab in the recent years has been actually to investigate whether cross-frequency phase synchronization could be a mechanism that could control neuronal processing between frequencies, similarly to binary frequency synchronization by sort of leading to coincident neuronal spiking that would have a functionally significant role in regulation of communication. And we have been investigating, first thing is to investigate and show whether this kind of a CFS, we call it, would actually be observed in the brain. So, because there is very scarce amount of data about this kind of a phenomenon. And these data now show that I present you here that there is significant both CFS, phase synchrony between oscillations, and phase amplitude coupling, both in MEG and SEG data. And the corrected here means that we have corrected for spurious interactions with the novel method that have been criticized to be sort of confounding the effects. And if you're interested, you will need to read our bioarchive paper of how to remove this. But basically, these data show that we have a coupling across oscillatory hierarchies from alpha to beta and gamma bands, and in phase amplitude coupling from alpha to higher frequencies in both modalities. Although in SEG data we also have theta to alpha coupling, and that may be related to SEG data specifically. These two different types of cross-frequency interactions are also dissimilar in the brain anatomical patterns. So we investigated the brain anatomy by sort of comparing in which brain regions the phase coupling in the lower frequencies was larger than in the higher frequencies, so these interactions are bidirectional. There is a lower frequency and higher frequency end, and we found that for the CFS, the faster oscillations were localized in the posterior brain regions, and the lower oscillations were sort of localized in the anterior brain regions, in the frontal cortex. But when we look at the phase amplitude coupling, we found the opposite result. And sometimes, or quite often actually, it has been discussed that whether these two forms of cross-frequency coupling would actually reflect the same neuronal phenomena, but this kind of pattern shows that this is likely not the case. SEG data, when we sort of refer it, we use a referencing method where we refer the SEG data into the closest white matter contact. And by this kind of approach, we can separate the contacts in the SEG data that are closer to the white matter and closer to the surface. So we can separate more deep and more superficial contacts of SEG data. And when we now estimate these cross-frequency couplings separately for these different, I say now layers, although they aren't layers, so layers, but layered directions, we can see that there is more coupling in the superficial layers and as well as between these layers than in the deep layers, suggesting that it arises more throughout these mechanisms. But however, when we estimated whether which part of the SEG data in these different layers would explain best the MEC data, we found that actually the MEC data was best explained by the coupling in the deep superficial layers. So this is a bit counterintuitive taken the last figure, but the coupling in the MEC data was much lower than in the SEG data, and it may be that we miss somehow the superficial contact pairs in the our MEG analysis, and this is actually nicely fitting to the idea that MEG signal would be generated by the layer 5 pyramidal cells, although this is just pointing towards this direction, not really proving it. We were also interested to see whether this kind of cross-frequency coupling patterns would be predictive of behavior, and this figure I just got yesterday, so I'm not going to much interpret it, but we had used several neuropsychological tests where we try to understand tests for these subjects, and basically these tests measure the reaction times to several sort of drawing or neuropsychological complexity tasks, and what we find is that the more the CFS these subjects have and cross-frequency coupling, the faster they are in performing tasks, so suggesting that this is beneficial, this kind of coupling for recognition. Cross-frequency coupling in rest is one thing, but if it's sort of coupling behaviorally relevant oscillations to support coherent cognition, it should also bind these oscillatory networks during cognitive tasks. And we have investigated with a cross-frequency phase synchrony could couple distinct frequency oscillations during working memory maintenance. And when we have a working memory maintenance period where the subjects are memorizing this kind of a displays, we can see that there is prominent and significant cross-frequency phase synchrony between alpha and gamma networks during the delay period. And when we again do all-to-all coupling analysis between frequencies and between all brain parcels, we can see that high alpha oscillations, which are here, are coupled to all high frequencies. And also we find that theta oscillations are coupled to all higher frequencies. However, low alpha oscillations are functionally distinct and they are decoupled from the other frequency networks. We can localize this data and we can find that these coupling between alpha and gamma oscillations are localized to frontoparietal attention networks. So basically we have high alpha is localized into FP, these are the blue nodes, and it connects to gamma in the visual systems, while we find the most prominent gamma hubs in the dorsal attention networks, which are the yellow, which connects alpha elsewhere. And we can, when we do the subsystem analysis within the functional parcellation of Yeo, we can also see a similar analysis that this kind of cross-frequency coupling actually couples frontoparietal and dorsal attention network activity together. Finally, one thing is that this phase coupling across frequency, it couples activity across the brain regions, but the second question is, does this coupling, can it couple exactly the hubs of these networks, or does it does it only couple just some activity around these networks, but we were able to show that the best or the biggest hubs were actually coupled by these cross-frequency interactions. So they're suggesting that this kind of mechanism can be a way to couple across oscillatory hierarchies and hence also across time in the brain. So in summary, in the brain we have multi-frequency oscillations in several frequencies. They are task-dependent, they carry out different functional roles. They can be phase-phase coupled at fast temporal accuracy. They can be also amplitude-amplitude coupled that reflects a slower coupling mechanism. And then we can have cross-frequency phase synchronization and phase amplitude coupling across these frequencies that could then integrate this processing across cognitive and temporal hierarchies to support highly complex cognitive functions. So I thank my group, I thank the persons who did this work, Felix, Sheng, and Jonni mostly, and then of course Matthias, whom with I work closely, and Lino Nobili and Gabriel Arnulfo, who has provided the SEG data, or who we collaborate with the SEG data. And I have one ad, and that is that next year this time we will have ICON 2020 in Helsinki. So welcome to Nightless Nights and test some Finnish saunas, which we have many in Helsinki. So thank you.